Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to dig into a really fundamental question in business strategy. How do companies actually create value? For decades we had one main answer, but the world has changed in a big way, and so has our understanding of strategy. Let's explore that evolution, from a simple, straightforward model to the complex digital world we live in today.
All right, let's kick things off with a question to get you thinking. Is your business more like an assembly line, carefully putting parts together one by one? Or is it more like a hospital, solving all these unique and complex problems for patients? Or maybe it's like a social network, where the whole point is just connecting people. The answer to that question really gets to the core of how your business creates value.
Okay, so to really get where we're going, you got to understand where we've been. And for the better part of the 20th century, the playbook was all about one thing: Michael Porter's value chain.
And this is it. This model was a total game changer because it broke a company down into its core activities. And the logic behind it is actually super simple, but really powerful. A business is basically an assembly line. It takes in raw materials, does something to them, and then ships out a finished product. The whole goal is just to do this sequence of steps better, faster, or cheaper than your competition.
So you've got these primary activities, and they all flow in this really clear straight line. You get the parts, you put them together, you ship the final thing out the door, you convince people they need to buy it, and then you help them out if something goes wrong. It's a very clear step-by-step process, built for efficiency and making tons of the same thing.
Right, so the main takeaway here, the whole point of this model, is that your competitive advantage comes from just being really good at the operations. The key drivers are scale, making more stuff to bring the cost down, and capacity utilization, making sure your factory is always humming. It's all about optimizing that flow.
So, for ages, this model was pretty much the undisputed king of business strategy. It was the go-to. But then, people started noticing, a few cracks in the armor. It turns out it didn't really work for everyone. For a lot of modern businesses, that whole assembly line idea just completely falls apart.
Think about it for a second. What's the raw material for an insurance company? Is an uninsured person just some raw material you process into an insured one? Of course not. It doesn't make any sense when you try to force a service business like insurance into a manufacturing box.
Or how about businesses that solve really unique problems? A hospital doesn't follow some simple assembly line, right? Every patient is a totally unique case. They need a custom mix of tests and diagnoses and treatments. And a consulting firm doesn't just process inputs, it has to figure out really complex problems for its clients. The whole process is cyclical, it's iterative, it's anything but a straight line.
So the big aha moment here was realizing that trying to jam these businesses into the value chain model wasn't just a bad fit, it was actually misleading. It made people focus on the wrong things, like transaction costs, but they were totally missing what really created value, like great risk management at a bank or diagnostic genius at a hospital. We needed new models.
And that's where a couple of strategists, Charles Stable and Øystein Fieldstad, came in. They saw this problem and came up with two brilliant alternatives to the value chain, which really expanded our strategic toolkit to fit the modern economy. So first, you've got the value shop, and this model is custom built for any business that solves unique problems for its customers. We're talking about a doctor's office, an architectural firm, or hey, even an oil exploration company. Their job isn't to crank out a standard product, it's to pull together all the right resources to solve a very specific problem for one client.
And just look at how this model shows the process. Unlike the straight line of the value chain, the value shop moves in a cycle. It's almost like a spiral. You find the problem, you brainstorm and check out different solutions, you make a choice, you do it, and then you see how it went, which might just lead you right back to finding a new problem. It's all about being effective, not just efficient.
All right, so our second alternative is what's called the value network. This one describes businesses whose value comes from mediating between customers. So think of a telephone company, a bank, a credit card company. They're not making a physical thing or solving a one-time problem. Nope, they're basically managing a club. And the value for every single member goes up as more people join.
And this table here, it just lays it all out perfectly. The value chain is all about transformation, using a linked sequence of tech. That's your assembly line. The value shop is about problem solving, applying an intensive custom set of tools. Think of everything a hospital has at its disposal. And the value network, that's about mediation, connecting people through technology, like an old telephone exchange. The key driver for a chain is scale. For a shop, it's all about reputation. You want the best doctor, right? And for a network, it's simply the size of the network. 3 totally different ways of thinking about value.
Okay, so now we've got our 3 models, the chain, the shop, and the network. Things are looking pretty clear, right? Well, just as we got that all figured out, a whole new revolution showed up on the scene. Digitization. The 4th Industrial Revolution is completely rewriting the rules for all 3 of these models.
And what's driving this massive shift? It's this whole new toolkit of incredibly powerful technologies. We're talking big data, the Internet of Things connecting literally every device, artificial intelligence that can make sense of it all, and cloud computing that provides the horsepower for everything. These aren't small improvements, these are absolute game changers.
And the impact of all this? It's absolutely profound. It's not just about tweaking things. As this quote puts it, what's happening is that the classic boundaries between companies, suppliers, and even customers are being totally redrawn, creating these deeply connected ecosystems.
So this deep connection is happening in 2 main ways. You've got vertical integration, which connects every single level inside one company, from a sensor on the factory floor all the way up to the CEO's dashboard. And then you've got horizontal integration, which connects that company to its entire world, its suppliers, its partners, and its customers, all in real time. The lines are getting very, very blurry.
So where does all this leave us? We've gone on this journey from a really simple linear model that was perfect for the industrial age to a world with more specialized strategies, and now we're smack in the middle of this hyper-connected digital landscape.
So let's just quickly recap that whole journey, right? We started with the factory straight-line value chain. Then our strategic toolkit got bigger, adding the problem-solving value shop and the connecting value network. And today, we've landed in the age of the digital ecosystem, where these models don't just exist side by side. They actually combine and interact in these powerful new ways.
Okay, so here is the absolute key takeaway. The big idea. Success in today's world isn't about picking one of these models, being a chain or a shop or a network. It's about using digital technology to become all 3 at once. I mean, think about a company like Nike. It makes shoes. That's a classic value chain. But it also uses data to give you personalized training apps and coaching. That's a value shop. And it builds this massive community of athletes with its apps and events. That's a value network. Success today means mastering all 3.
And that's what leaves us with one final and kind of challenging question for you. When all the old boundaries just melt away and value is being created everywhere all the time, you have to stop and ask yourself, what business are you really in? I bet the answer is a lot more complex and a whole lot more interesting than you might think. Thanks for tuning in.